This is the Indie Podcast, the internet's #1 show about getting better mentally, physically, and financially. Listen in with host Cyrus Igano as he speaks with some of the most interesting people in our society today.
This call is being recorded. If you do not wish to be recorded, please disconnect at this time.
Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Cyrus Igona with the Indie Podcast. Today we have probably our most special guest ever, Rio Owen. This dude Rio is probably one of the most talented people that I've ever met. He could, sing, draw, produce, animate, the list goes on. It's really hard for people to comprehend the talents that he has, and he's not really just one of those people who've done it on a small scale. He's worked with artists as big as Lil Wayne. He's multi-decorated, multi-awarded. What's up, Rio? How are you doing today?
What's up, man? I appreciate you inviting me on here.
That's cool. So talk to me, man. Tell me, were you always talented as a little kid, or is it something that you just worked hard at? Or tell me kind of like the beginnings.
Man, as a kid, the first thing I can remember doing was dancing. Everybody always, in my family, they would always get together and turn on music, and if you turn on Michael Jackson or whatever, I started dancing. And then, I had this really outgoing personality, and then I started to put Legos together really well. Everyone was like, "What is going on?" I would build the thing. That came with the instructions in 5 minutes. I'd show my mom, and then I'd take it apart, and I'd build something else. I'd build a flying car, or I'd build this. I always had an imagination. And then I started drawing. And then that was all by the time I was 5, probably, that all those things started to come out. And so I was really into music, really into dancing, really into art, really into building things and architecture and He-Man and creating almost even cinematic setups with all my characters, and that, you know what I mean? I was always interested in just all these different things, and I just think I just had a really curious mind. I was always looking, how do I do that?
Interesting. So at a really early age, you were already beast moding.
Yeah, I was going in.
That's cool. So, was it just always a one track, this is exactly what I'm going to do in my life, or did something happen that made you kind of open your eyes to it?
Well, a couple things, when I started to draw and, win little contests, I was drawing and dancing all the way through high school. Everyone knew me to be both. And I even won most talented superlative in my high school yearbook, my senior yearbook and stuff. So everybody kind of always knew that I was goal oriented, and I was going to do what I said I was going to do. Because at the time I wanted to work at Pixar. I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to work at Pixar. I'm going to work at Disney. I'm blah blah blah.
Uh-huh.
And then I went to art college, and it kind of threw me off. Because this was the first time I had been away from home, and then now I'm paying a lot of money to go to this school, and seeing a bunch of other artists around me, and just kind of seeing how everything worked, and even honestly, what happened that kind of changed it was, the money. It was hard to kind of keep going to school and whatnot, and my mom was helping. I have 3 other brothers, and they all have to go to college, and it was just a lot. And so I started to look, and I saw a little crack in the pavement as far as the school goes, and I started to see some of the same teachers were teaching at this community college 15 15, 20 minutes down the road. It was the same teachers for like literally like 5% of the fee. It was that cool. So I said, let me figure this out. So I didn't go back after 1 year, and then I just went to the community college and I took all the classes I could. I wasn't trying to get a degree necessarily. I was just like, I was more trying to grab the knowledge from all those, instructors and professors that I knew had the teaching, capacity to teach at a big school, but they just happened to be at this, community college. So once I was doing that, then I was just like freelancing and doing stuff, and I just kind of got to a point where I just kind of was curious for something else, and that's when music started to kind of creep in,
Interesting. So the music stuff, the creation of music came in late, probably, was that your early 20s?
Yeah, early 20s.
And then how did that start? Did you, talking about the music thing, this is not maybe your best skill, is that correct? But it's the skill that you've been recognized the most in. Is that a fair statement?
Man, I don't know. It's hard for me to judge, what my best skill is. I mean, I think, I don't know how I could say that or what I think it is. I think that's for other people to kind of decide. Some people love the music, some people love art, some people love both. So, it's cool. But what was the question again? My bad.
So, what got you? What made you say, "Oh, let me start creating"? Was it just out of curiosity, and then what was that like? Were you kind of nervous or shy at first, and what was the learning process like? Because that's a big learning curve.
Making music, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the art kind of became my job. I think that's really what happened. I was out of school. I was taking the classes. In the meantime, I was doing any art job. I've done I did children's books, I did face painting, I did, portraits. I did a portrait for a girl whose husband was locked up in jail, and she wanted to have a portrait of them together. Just all kind of random jobs, and it was just starting to be less of what I loved. And I had a friend that I met who was also an artist, but he was a rapper. And we would always be hanging out, listening to music, and he would be freestyling this and that. And I don't know what it was, but I was just like, this seems interesting to me. I want to see if I can do it. I was such a music fan. I was still dancing at the time. I'd break dance, and I was in the club, popping and locking and just being ridiculous. So I was like, music is something I know pretty well. So I wonder how this learning curve, is going to be. So I went to Best Buy, and I ended up buying this program called Acid, not the drug, but it's I just opened it up, and it was $30, and man, ever since that day, it was like you couldn't take me away from it. I was just so curious, what does this do? And I was such a big fan of Timbaland, and how he would use very unconventional sounds and crickets, and I would hear all those things before I even made music. I would always pick out sounds, or I'd be able to hear different things in music, or Michael Jackson, or whatever, Prince. And so it was, and my father was a musician, but I didn't grow up with him, so it was kind of always in my bones, and it did take a while. I will say that it took a while for me to, learn what was going on. And at the time, I just had a PC, and there was no YouTube, there was no no way for you to really learn really fast. You had to kind of know someone who already knew how to do things. And one day, the rapper friend of mine, he had kind of got a label's interest, this local label in Tampa. And we went over there to the studio, and I played my beats, in front of all these other producers. It was the first time I'd really been in any kind of studio setting with giant Triton and Motif keyboards and recording booth. I'd never seen any of that. So I'm playing my beats and everybody's freaking out and they're like, yo, like, what do you use? You know, I'm like, man, I'm using this little program called Acid, you know, because I didn't know anything else. And they were freaking out. They were like, no way. Like, and then the owner of the studio, you know, he really saw something in me. Shout out to Ski. And he said, before I left, he was like, look, man, I believe in you and I think you're dope. And, you know, before he wasn't trying to sign me, anything like that. He just saw my talent or the promise.
Mm-hmm.
So he handed me an MPC and he's like, learn how to use this. And I was just like, what? Like I already just figured out how to get nice on Acid. And so I took it home and I had my girlfriend at the time print out the instruction manual, which was like hundreds of pages.
Yeah,
and it was just so intimidating. And that thing sat in my room for like a month, and I just stared at it, you know. And then I kind of got over my fear, and I just, you know, went in, and I actually kind of had to relearn how to make beats because it was such a different, you know, process than what I started with. But I really feel like that's what kind of set it off and made it to where I was like, all right, you know, this could be a profession for me, you know what I mean? Because I really love it and people are responding well, you know?
That's interesting. So somebody saw something in you and just helped it along by just giving you something for free. Just, here you go.
Yeah, they believed in me, you know, and I guess I was right place, right time kind of thing, like what they say, like preparation, you know, and luck.
Yeah.
It was just moments, you know.
That's interesting. Yeah, you know, I've been reading lately, and it's talking about how, you know, when in life, you know, you basically find evidence to make the stories you tell yourself come true, right? So that giving you that keyboard probably really strengthened your direction in music at the time. You know, that's something you probably never forget.
Definitely. Definitely. And I mean, it gave me the confidence too, you know, because I knew that these guys, you know, at the studio, they had all the nice gear. They had, you know, they were already doing it. And for them to be excited about what I was doing was kind of like, you know, more confirmation, like, yo, keep going.
Most definitely. So what are the kind of like, what are the breaks that happen? So like from there, you know, what's the timeline, you know, leading up to your like ascension in the industry?
So what are the breaks that kind of happen?
Yeah, like, you know, you meet more people. Like, did you just send out a bunch of tracks? Like, what did you do after that time period where it's like, okay, I got this new tool, you know, and then what did you do next?
So after that, I started to just, you know, get on my Kanye 5 beats a day, you know, for 3 summers kind of thing, and just like was just like making stuff. And me and the rapper, I kind of actually got good enough at the time to start, you know, working with the rapper that I met in the beginning. Like, cause at first, you know, he was like, okay, those beats are cute, you know what I mean? But he wasn't really fucking with them. So now, you know, at this point, like we're going back and forth to that same studio. You know, one of the artists that was out of the studio had a hit, you know, on the radio, and I got to kind of like a lot of the behind the scenes over there, and one of the engineers at the place was kind of like hard on me in a you know, in a mentor kind of way, like, you know, like, nah, that's whack, or don't do that, or you know, you need better sounds, or blah, blah, you know, just whatever it was just always nitpicking what I was doing, and I wasn't used to that, you know, so I was just like, oh yeah, well, you know, and I was just always kind of like trying to just get through, you know, the whole thing of I mean, there's so much to learn, you know, with music. It's like rhythm, it's tempo, it's chords, it's music theory, but then it's drum choice, you know, sounds. It's like there's a lot of things, and if you don't do it right, it could sound really corny.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just a lot of that. And then I would work with different, local acts, and I would sell little beats here and there, and I started making a little bit of money off of it, and I was like, oh, this is nice. I was still working a job. And then kind of right around that point, I had a manager that I found, and right when things were starting to kind of, I was starting to get better, get pretty good, then I got some news that I had cancer. And that really kind of shook up everything that was going on in my life. And what ended up happening was when I found the news out, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know who to call. And I just went home and I just made a track. It was the only thing that at this point, it was more than just, let me make beats for this rapper or let me make money or whatever. This was like now, art to me in a way. Like I was expressing this not for anybody else, but for me, because it was saying something that I was feeling, And then during I ended up doing chemotherapy and radiation and the whole 9 months kind of thing. But during that time, when I wasn't like completely sick and in the bed or throwing up or whatever, I was making music or playing Grand Theft Auto. I was just finally starting to realize the sort of spiritual side of it, as far as music goes, and being, using the music to kind of speak to my legacy, right? Like, if I die during this, this music is gonna be the only thing that people really have to come, hear me or hear my thoughts or see how I see the world or whatever. So I think I started to make music in a way that I hadn't before, and that started to get some attention. And I met Steph, who's my business partner now, around that time through an ad that I placed on Craigslist, where I was selling a keyboard because I needed money for my chemo and stuff. And this producer ended up seeing it on there, and he introduced me, and it was just like a really odd thing that I met Steph, and then he was like, yo, I can take some of your beats and bring them to some record labels. And he's from New York, and I was in Florida at the time. I was like, man, you don't ever trust nobody from New York. You're gonna take my stuff and throw it on the corner, and on 100 mixtapes, and I just didn't, I wasn't sure to believe him. And then we just kept working, and I finally believed him. Sent him a bunch of tracks, and he took it to some labels, and then I ended up getting some interest for a publishing deal, which was a huge, thing. Like, I didn't know anybody around me who had signed a publishing deal. I didn't know very much about that side of the industry, so I was just kind of new. And then, and that was a huge break. And then so I started submitting beats to my publishing company, and then they were sending things out, and then right when I kind of finished on my chemo and stuff, I want to say like maybe 6 months or something like that after, maybe it was a little later, but that's when I got my first placement with Beyonce, which was, obviously my first up at bat, and, it's like a home run. It was just like, I can't even take all the credit for that, it was just the right song, it was the right time, it was just one of those things,
Man, that's so crazy. So you go through cancer, and then you come out on the other side, and then bam, Beyonce, first placement.
Yep.
What are the odds? What are the odds of that? What are the odds? There's got to be. That's like higher than lottery odds right there.
It's like the worst news and the best news back to back.
I mean, that's probably what they say. It's darkest before dawn, right?
Yep.
So what happened? Did you, tell me about the time when you found out about that news? What did you do? What are some things that happened when you first found out you got that placement?
Well, the thing that a lot of people don't know is that it takes a long time for, when you get the news that the artist likes something to when it actually comes out, And that itself was like a whole year and a half sort of ordeal because I'll just go into a real quick story about how it kind of got there. I had been writing with this writer for a while through email, and his name is DQ, and he was based out of LA. And we just had real good chemistry. He would always kind of like do stuff that I liked over my stuff. So I would just always send him stuff. And then he started working with some other writers, and then they formed a little group. And then all of a sudden, one of those writers had written Halo. This was before Halo was like a big hit, but he had already had one on Beyonce. And so they were asking for more joints from him. And his writing partner was my boy DQ. So they hit me. They were like, hey, do you have any beats, for Beyonce? And, this and that. I said, sure. I just sent over a batch. They recorded, that, and then they sent it out. So they recorded it on on a Thursday. Right? I think it was even I want to say it was like Thanksgiving, the whole Thanksgiving. They wrote it and recorded it, and they sent it out on like a Friday, maybe like right after Thanksgiving. On Sunday, Beyonce's people called and said they wanted to hold the record, which is unheard of, right? It's like
so that's
2
pretty
days.
fast, right there.
Yeah, that's like I've never had that happen since then, like that fast. Yeah, and so it was just kind of like an instant thing, and it was like, whoa, what's going on, And then, for the next year and a half, it was like, it's going to be on there. It's not going to be on there. It's going to be on there. It's not going to be on there. And it was just like I would hear rumors of the A&R would be like, yeah, it's still in, in consideration. And, when the artist, works on an album, they might make anywhere from like 50 to 200 songs, So even if they like it, for it to make it on there is still crazy chances. It's like crazy ratio.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so eventually it made it. And what's interesting is right after that, maybe even like 2 weeks after that, I had another placement with Keisha Cole. So I had 2 releases kind of around the same time, and it was the first time I kind of got like some major music checks. And so I was able to move. I decided to move to Atlanta from Florida and kind of really get, closer to the music scene. And I moved to Atlanta kind of at the end of like all the Polo the Don, and, there was like a big buzz in Atlanta with Young Jock and Lil Jon and all that stuff was going on at that time. And and so I moved like right at the tail end of that, and I stayed in Atlanta for 1 year. And I bought myself like a nice computer that I could like work off of, and it was just like it was nice, man. And then I stayed there for 1 year, and then I moved to LA, and that's when I really started to get like in the business kind of thing. But
wait,
yeah,
before we go on, what song was it for Beyonce?
It's called Hello.
Okay, Beyonce Hello. So for you guys listening, go Google that. I'm sure you've heard it. All right, so you moved to LA, and how was that?
Man, LA was interesting, to say the least, just because, I was around really famous people or really successful people, and more than I'd ever been around before. You just see so much stuff. You end up getting invited, over here. Next thing you know, you're on the hills at this house, and you're, sitting next to this person, and, you just like, I'd always dreamed about, like, the Grammys and stuff and going, and then now I was finally, like, there. I was around it, and then I was in the studio all the time. I was, like, seeing or working with big writers, big artists. So it was eye-opening, but I did a lot of sessions, that was one of the things that I used to see a lot of writers, they would do like 2-3 sessions a day, 5-6 days a week, like driving all over LA, like making hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of songs. And that, it just was more of like kind of a factory setting, which was definitely interesting because I just kind of come from the whole, almost holistic, like creating music to feed my soul kind of thing. So it was a little jarring for me, but I was able to get some more placements there and make, more connections and meet more writers and meet more artists and kind of make more friends there.
Did you like it? Were you enjoying your time out there?
I think I did, for a little bit, but I definitely found it hard to kind of, find real friends there. That, there's like people that you work well with, musically, but you might not hang out with them outside of the studio.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's people that, that you like as a person and you get along really well, but then when you get in the studio, they don't fit well over what you're doing, or you know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of interesting that some of my best friends that I still talk to now, I met in LA. But some of them, we only worked together a couple times, but we hung out a lot. So that was like kind of an interesting thing for me to learn too. But I just kept feeling like, there's that feeling in LA that you got to keep up. Everyone, was walking around like brand new clothes, brand new shoes, car. Like it's all about, showing people your accomplishments, like wearing your accomplishments. And, I don't know. I just was like kind of fed up with that, and I was looking for a little bit more. So I ended up being in this relationship, and so I was just kind of like, you know what? Like maybe it's time that I leave, and it was a long distance relationship, so I ended up moving back to Atlanta, and but just kept working, kept making music, kept doing stuff, but then kind of the similar thing that happened with art in the beginning, like I told you, where I started to kind of lose interest, like it kind of became my job, it started to lose some of the shine, just, from politics, from, not getting things that placements that you were told that you were going to get or that you thought you were going to get, and then it not happening, or and then money is like a whole different thing in the music industry too, because you can get paid, you can get 2-3 placements in one day and make a ton of money, but then, you won't see anything for a long time, or you might not get a royalty statement, and it takes like over a year after you get a placement for the money to start coming in from that placement. So you have to, be really smart with the money that you make, and and how much you spend and this and that. So moving to Atlanta was cool because the cost of living was way lower. There was way less people to keep up with. It's kind of a cool place for me to kind of get back to, because I grew up a lot in South Carolina, so it was like very close to that, kind of what I was used to as far as people, So, yeah.
Interesting. So what are that you learned that maybe people out there who are creative or younger maybe don't think about, that you kind of had to learn as you were basically growing up, out in LA or on the road? Let's say LA, because it's probably the most like far away from home you were at. Like, what are some tips that you learned in the industry?
I mean, it's weird because I would probably have better advice, in hindsight, things that I messed up, the things that I did wrong, or, wish I could have like done better. And I would say that now I think I know more than ever that, being dope, being good at what you do is just one tiny piece of the puzzle. And everything else is about relationships, who who likes you, who believes in you, and I think that at the time I was just like, I'm naturally like an introverted kind of person. I like to keep to myself. I don't like to do a lot of flashy talking or bragging or selfies or anything, and nothing's wrong with that. It's just not me. So being in LA, it was kind of like that, that's the land of that. And so I kind of felt even more out of place. And I would just find that I was just hanging out in my own crib in the studio, just the crib in the studio. And, they say most deals are done, over dinner or something, somewhere else. So I would probably have hung out a little bit more, worked on some relationships a little bit more and less on trying to be the quote unquote best, Yeah, because it's really important, it's just as important to work on your craft as it is to work on, your contacts. So I'd say that was one of the biggest things. Something else, money. Save your money. Like, there were so many things I bought in LA that I did not need, that I still have, like just shoes that I never wore, or, clothing, or just stuff, and I think sometimes that's the thing when you get that music money, you want to celebrate because it's hard. It's hard to get money in the music, but when you do, and it's a nice check, plus when you get that music check, they don't take the taxes out.
Mm-hmm.
So you straight check, and then you got to worry about it later. That's why you hear so many people get caught up, because they spend that money, and then, the tax man comes around like, no, you got to pay us. So, yeah, money is such an important thing, especially in the music, and especially now, because I was kind of in it, at the tail end of when people were still buying CDs, and, there was ringtones, and there was all these other ways to make money, and then that I've seen it completely change to streaming, and even me, like, I've made less and less and less money, over the years, just the structure of the industry. So
yeah, it is. There is a ton of pressure when you get the money, because the reality is, in the creative world, you judge a tree by its fruit. So if you don't roll up in that Lambo, not that it's a problem. The world's kind of getting a little bit smarter, but people are like, who are you again?
Yep.
So it's tough, man. It really is tough.
And you'd be surprised, man. I mean, you would get, it's like you might get a placement if someone sees you in a Lamborghini.
Exactly.
Then they add value to you. They're like, oh wow, who is he? He must have done something big with. But if you're like me, someone's introverted, someone's in his room, making 100 beats, it's like, that stuff doesn't move for you now.
It's weird, man. It's weird the way it works, and the other thing too, it's such a small percentage of people who actually end up making money or making a dent in the industry, that it's like there's no way this sort of knowledge can be taught, really, So it's a tricky thing for sure.
Definitely, man.
So tell me about, Steph, meeting up with Steph, forming the Sound Killers, and kind of, that whole movement.
Yeah, so, like I said, I met Steph like a little bit before I got the news of being sick. We were like, being friends, and then I just realized that he was, we got along, as friends, but creatively, he was the other half, as far as like the business sense. And I was all creative. I love making things. I love, the act of creating. But once it's created, I go back to create more. And Steph would take what I created and try, to sell it. And that's kind of what I needed. I wanted someone to help me, to help facilitate that, because I wasn't really good at it. Being an extrovert, being a creative, even just the whole idea of selling your own work and talking to clients, it's like not something that creatives like to do very much.
Mm-hmm. So
Steph ended up coming through and really filling that void for me. And so then we actually started Sound Killers, believe it or not, as like a lease a leasing site for beats, to make some extra money so we just put up a bunch of beats and put some tags on them and, call it Sound Killers. And after that little business venture didn't really work out how I thought, we ended up really liking the name, and the name came from, in Jamaica they do these things called Sound Clash, where it's about who has, the best music or the best dub plates or the best, whoever killed the Sound Clash, they would call it Sound Killer. I just always liked that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like the Sound Killer. So did that, and then ended up kind of really brainstorming some logo ideas with some friends I went to school with. Came up with a cool logo that people started to like, and then we started to just kind of roll into that. And then we had a couple other producers and some writers and stuff over the years that we ended up, bringing on. And we were just kind of pushing it as a collective, of really dope people that, we're all talented and all cool, all friends, all good people, not on any of that, weirdo stuff. So, yeah, everybody in Sound Killers is really, really talented. What's funny is that now, everybody kind of has their own little mini thing underneath the Sound, which is exactly what I wanted. I never, as the head of something that, like the Sound Killers, I was never into controlling people, because I don't want people to do that to me or tell them, oh, change this or don't sound like that. So I'm totally, with everybody having their own creative, control and freedom. So I really encouraged everyone to make sure they had their own artists, their own, kind of little, just a place to really be themselves, So it's kind of cool now to see, everybody kind of really into that,
Most definitely. So, what are some things that you plan to do here in the near future? I know that you have started doing a lot more art, animation, and 3D modeling and such. What other things do you have coming up?
Well, I think that it's interesting, what I was saying earlier about being in Atlanta and kind of calming down from the industry. And at the time, I had Lil Wayne's single called Mirror with Bruno Mars in Atlanta, and it was a really big song. It was a single. It was all these different things that I hadn't really had at the time. I'd had some things here. I had a little video here, but this was the biggest one. It was on the radio all the time. And then, I ended up having a lot of trouble, dealing with that record and lawsuits and just fights over splits. And it was just really, disheartening, and so I needed something else. I needed something else to kind of feel like I was in control or I was doing what I wanted to do. So that's when I started getting back into art. And then, like you said, I started working on little videos, little 15-second Instagram videos. I even asked AJ, who's a friend of ours, together, to show me some tips and this and that, and he was always busy. So I was like, man, you know what? I'm just gonna watch YouTube and I'm gonna teach myself. So I started to just start with those little 15-second videos, and eventually I started moving up, and I ended up doing my own music video, and I shot some music videos for some other people, and I started to really, get confident in that. And now what's interesting is I took a break from making my own music for a while. I was making music for other people and stuff, but I didn't really have a place that I was actually doing things on my own. So I started doing remixes. I started, releasing my own tracks, and now I'm at this point where I feel like I've, trained, on the art side again, and I got that stuff back rolling to the point that I'm caught up. I took a 10-year break from doing art, and then it took me, a couple years to kind of get it back get it back on point and learn the new software. And it's kind of cool because in school I remember messing with Photoshop in the very beginning, like back when I was in high school, and I was just like, this is cool, but it was so expensive, and I just never really, I always had like a bootleg copy of Photoshop. So it's like now that it's affordable, and now that they have that Creative Cloud subscription and stuff like that, I was able to mess with all kind of stuff. And so I really started to find my voice as far as that goes too. So now I'm working on an art show / album, and it's going to be released in this year, probably more towards the winter time. But I'm just going to be releasing like new art, new music videos, new singles. I actually started making prints of some of my artwork and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool to like, now I feel like I have both left and right. I'm ambidextrous, right? I could do music and I could do art. I could speak the languages. I can talk to people about it. I can tell them what I'm looking for. Even if I don't direct it, or even if I don't, make the music, I can definitely express myself in the language. So it's kind of dope, man.
Yeah, that's super important. And, something that we always kind of talk about, it's because I'm a similar way where I know I could go out and film a music video, edit it, cut it, upload it, tag it, all that sort of stuff, and then I could also get in Photoshop and do graphics or do an audio program, etc., which kind of represents this new wave of the internet creative, per se, where you pretty much do everything. Which is a gift and a curse, because for something that costs $100,000 to $200,000, you could literally find somebody such as you, and get it done for like $20,000, $30,000, which is like a big, big, big shift in the industry and the way things work.
Definitely.
How is that though? Do people like not understand your capability, or do people usually know? Maybe the younger people understand, like, hey, this dude could do everything, or how has it been working with like more older clients?
Yeah, I always hear stuff from older clients like, you're doing too much, or you need to pick one, or jack of all trades, master of none, and I could definitely see where it can get distracting, because I do have a lot on my hands sometimes. But at the same time, the frustration that I had before is worse, which is when you have all the ideas in your head, but you can't communicate.
Totally.
You can't show anybody. You can't, you might not even have the money to hire separate people for all these different jobs, and then, deadlines, and then, it's all kind of stuff. We had designers disappear on us. We had web guys just completely fall off the face of the earth. We had people that we paid money for certain design stuff, and then, they just gave us like half-ass work. It's all kind of stuff. So at some point, I had to just take it in my own hands. So I was like, you know what? I see it in my head. You know what I mean? So I need to learn how to do it, and I think that makes me, more valuable. Because, even in a situation like, for instance, as a director, you might not hold the camera, you might not act in it, you might not set up the lighting, but you're the one that knows what it should look like, what it should feel like when the actor comes in, or when and I think that having a little bit of education about each of the things that have to do with directing is important, because then you can talk to different people and speak their language and explain to them what you need. And that's kind of what I think is really cool about now. That I see so many people online that do both music and design, and they'll have like breakthroughs over here, they'll have breakthroughs in music, and it's cool. But if you're trying to make a whole movie and act in it and edit and do the sound and set up the light, and like, that's where it gets too much. But I definitely think it's important to kind of be able to do a little bit of everything, like you were saying.
Yeah, I think it's important too. And just like you're saying, to reiterate what you're saying, if you don't understand how to communicate from the front end to the back end, you will have problems. You will.
Yep.
Will have massive problems.
You won't be happy. You'll think that you explained it, but then when the final product comes out and you're like, "That's not what it looked like in my head." Like, it's gotten to the point now where I'm able to make 360 VR rooms of what the gallery is going to look like when my artwork's in it. Like, I don't want there to be any gap between what I'm saying and what you're seeing. I want you to get it, yes. Because if I'm talking to investors, if I'm talking to non-creative people, they need to see it. They can't see it in their head.
Exactly. That's true. It's true. Man, it's a lot to take in. So, like I was saying, so that's pretty much what you're getting into now, is basically combining all of the elements into your own project. So it's going to be music and art combined as one. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I look up to people like Flying Lotus a lot, because he went to film school, and he might not direct his videos, but he has a huge hand in what it looks like and what the story is or what the concept is. I mean, even his live show is like visuals and music, and it's like all connected. And I think that's this word has been kind of overused, but I have synesthesia, and I see a lot of people say that, and what it is when senses are kind of mixed up. So some people see sounds, or they smell colors, or it's just like a mix of things. So that's one of the things when I danced back in the day. Like, I always see things with music, and I thought it was normal. I didn't know anybody else didn't see what I saw. So I think that my goal is to kind of recreate that. Like, I just want you to see what I see, and hear what I hear, and whether that comes in the form of an album, whether it comes in the form of visual, whether it comes in a song and a visual, or if it's just an art piece, if it's a digital art piece, on an LCD screen. Like, it could come in all those different forms. And I'm excited about the future, because I'm also working on an art show right now with some other artists here in New York. That was the other missing thing, is I moved from Atlanta to New York. But I definitely moved here because of the art scene, and there being, I think, a bigger audience and people who kind of are on the cutting edge of technology, art and music and fashion. And I kind of want to be around that and soak that energy up and try to figure out, what I want to do might not even exist yet. I'm okay with that. So I'm just kind of figuring it out, as I go along. Just still working on music, still sending stuff. I just got Shaggy's new single, actually, that's on the radio and stuff out here. So it's kind of cool that, that the music stuff is still going as well.
What's the song called?
It's called I Got You with Jovi Rockwell.
So you produced this new Shaggy song that's out. That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, man.
I heard it.
Sure. Yeah, they're promoting it pretty hard too. That's a good thing to see.
So where can people get a hold of you, get in touch with you, check out your stuff online?
Okay, cool, man. Most of my handles on social media are at thisreo, THISREO, and I just started a new page as well with a lot more art-based stuff called Reometry, REOMETRY, and you can also go to reometry.com. So I have prints, and where I'll be announcing the show that I have next month, end of next month. We're on the 26th of August. That's what we're aiming for here in New York, but it's going to be music, it's going to be visuals, it's going to be sexy. So, yeah. Hit me up.
I'm excited, man, and the world will experience your talent and your skill and everything the Sound Killers are doing, and I'm just happy to be a part of it, and I'm hyped for everybody listening to this that they get a chance to kind of be one of the first people to know specifically who's behind it, because you've definitely heard his work before or seen his work before. So, everybody reach out to Rio, and, thanks for being our...
Thanks for listening. Reach out and let us know your opinion. Contact Cyrus at cyrusigono.com or call us into the office at 888-966-7225. Again, that's 888-966-7225. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and tell your friends. We look forward to hearing from you soon.